Yeah, so today's topic is aligning marketing and sales, and I would like to start with you, Anders. Is it important to align marketing and sales?
It depends, of course. We can say that I have almost never ever experienced or seen it, but at a few times I have experienced it. And when I say experience it, it is actually even pre-sales, sales, and after sales. It's the full customer experience that with some companies and brands in B2B and B2C, you can sometimes experience that they know your history, they know you, they know all the interactions you have done and so far in a nice way. But for most companies, whether they are B2B and B2C, they have never ever made a decision that they want their customers to have one experience. And therefore built in the question sales and marketing and so on, that's the stance we need to take. How do you want to be perceived? Do you want to step out of your inside costume and look from the outside and think, okay, this is a B2B company. My sales and purchase cycle is 3 to 7 years. And then I will be a customer for 5 or 10 or 15 years. How do I want to perceive this company that I'm now stepping out of, pretending that I'm on the outside? That I think is a type of discussion to have. And then it's very, very easy. One source of data, relation, interactions, everything else. That's at least how I think.
Stellan, do you think that it's relevant for all companies, no matter what industry you are in, to align marketing and sales?
Yeah, I think so for like two reasons. So the first one is obviously then what Anders has been talking about here, is the sake of the customer experience, basically. You never want to have a gap in that experience. You want to feel like you're interacting with one company, even though you're passing through different departments on the inside. And then the other one I would say is for the sake of business outcome. It's a really sort of sub-optimization or a deduction in return of investment in marketing and sales if you have this sort of siloed approach.
I think, Alexander, it's always interesting to think if it was illegal or if it was forbidden. And let's phrase, okay, it's from now forbidden to run a marketing department. It's forbidden to run a sales department, and it's forbidden to run an after-sales department. And it's not enough just to rephrase it. You need one department. One department in the whole company called the customer department. No, the market department. Yeah, perhaps, or something else. Everyone that works with different things within these previous 3 or 5, in some cases, department. How do we gonna organize that? And why do we organize it like that? Do we do it to save money? Perhaps that's a consequence. Do we do it to be more relevant? Yes, that's usually prerequisite to have satisfied customers, and so forth. I think it's good to play with the illegal thing or the forbidden thing. We must change for some reason. And I would say start by making sure that it's one department and their responsibilities is that their main responsibility is potential and existing customers.
So Stellan, the companies that decide to create one department, what challenges do they meet in the transition into one department?
Well, I think there is a a very common scenario is a sort of a distrust on both sides of this. So both from marketing and sales and after sales. Sort of this they don't know what they're doing attitude is something we come across. And that is of course related to organizational silos and having these very sort of specialized departments that sort of are driven more by their own existence than by the outcome for the customer in the end. I don't think it's a given that a company over time ends up in that situation, because there are obviously companies who prove the other point, so to speak, but I think it is more likely for a company that has been in business for quite a while to end up in that situation, and for a younger company, simply because in a younger company you have started that company and got traction with that company because you are solving problems for someone, and then once, until you reach a certain scale, it's more all hands on deck than organizational siloed thing that there is in bigger organizations.
Yeah, Anders, do you have any challenges to add there or verify?
You can look at it from several perspectives, and yes, I agree with Stellan. Let's say like this: if I'm having a dinner with people who work in B2B, and then I tell them, you have one department that it's fun but fairly costly, and then I say you have one department, that's needed. How else could you do business in your company? And then you have one department. So that's where you make the money. Okay, I understand. Then everyone knows the three departments that I'm talking about. It's not fair. It's not always true, but it's very, very strange. So that's one perspective, because I presume
it's definitely the perception.
Yes. And then the other side of that is, okay, maybe I sign up for something with a B2B company. I sign up for their financial news. Let's say I do that. And I do that because they are a prospective supplier of us long term. We have a long contract now, but I will watch them a bit from a financial perspective. And I will also sign up on their LinkedIn page, their company page. 2 years later, I start subscribing on their knowledge content. I read their articles, perhaps I download something. Then some of my colleagues start signing up for some other things and visit their buy section or their product section or solution section and commercial section. And perhaps we look at a couple of the webinars that they provide. A couple of years later, we become customers and we get invoices and we start getting problems with the deliveries. If I now would ask this company, could you, from our company's perspective, give us a full review on the journey we have been doing together over the past, let's say, 5 years? Oi. They have to look in different databases now. In my world, they should only go to one tab saying companies, finding my companies, finding all these interactions the last 5 years. And if they want to look at me, they go to the contact tab of people and look at all my interactions, because I was very active early on. And now I'm active again 5 years later. In between there was a lot of influencers and users and decision makers in my company involved. I do actually not know any B2B company, at least industrial, that can show me this case. So that's an answer also on, sorry for the expression, damn it, change it. It's one experience, it's one custom interface. How valuable would it have been for this company to actually understand everything from the first IPs they met until all the questions and answers in our daily interactions and with service and after sales and ordering more and so forth.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
clear.
and you don't even have to go to sort of big data, AI, etc., to understand the importance. It's like it's here now. But then, of course,
the one-liner, Stellan, is the big data bullshit that has been buzzing around for 10 years now to companies who don't even have email addresses to all the customers. I mean, there must be an end on the big data stress when you don't even have the email addresses.
You have to start in the right place. So yeah.
But at the same time, Alexander, it's a huge. We can sit here working for a small company, although we are trusted by fantastic companies. I mean, it's. I can't give any examples of companies or names for various reasons, but it's a huge step. But at the same time, as we get back to at many times, you need something in your remuneration model that motivates you to go this way. The number of times, can't mention the company, but 2008, for a huge global company, we presented how they should onlineify their full offering. And I will always remember the faces of all these sort of business area managers thinking, this will never happen, and I will keep my bonus. Because it's so easy to say, why don't they do this? And at the same time, it's so easy to find the motivation to do this. Change the bonus models, change the remuneration models, although huge respect for if the owners want to do it or not.
Yeah.
This is a very doable thing. Yeah. Very doable.
So that would be your first thing to change, Anders. Things, incentives, numbers.
If I would be the owner of one of the companies that I'm thinking about, yes, I will never be an owner of a company like that. But if I would be, yes, that would be the first thing I would do.
And what would you change it to from being?
I would firstly, I would forbid the 3 departments.
Yeah.
And make 1 department. And in a model, of course, you should prioritize people's readiness for the change, and you should prioritize what and how, and always prioritize why, so they understand why you make the change. Because we will get the result based on both revenue and satisfaction very, very quickly. We will become unique as a company when we get the feedback. You know how it is to be me. That's easy for us and me to say, but I claim that it's as easy as that if the owners want it.
Yeah, well, that bridges also this famous quote, which I don't remember who said, but that the culture eats strategy for business or for breakfast, and it's. I mean, we can decide what we want about the remuneration models, but if we don't have a culture that embraces the change, then we're not going to get all the way anyway. So that is also a super important component to make sure that but people are empowered to make this change.
And whoever said it, it's a very, very true quote expression.
Yeah, I looked it up. It's Peter Drucker.
Well said, Peter.
Yeah, and Stellan, if you were part of a marketing department and you were really understood and want to align your marketing with your sales, where would you start if
Yeah, so two of the things we mentioned, I think we can add to it that it obviously has to be priority from leadership in both marketing and sales to make it happen. Someone very capable and someone with a very large mandate has to be in charge. So it's not you can't outsource it, or you can't sort of downsource it, if that's a saying.
No,
but and the change has to be measured. So we have to be in agreement on how we shall measure the success of the change. So I think those are three very important components in addition to the other two mentioned.
Could I answer from Stellan's perspective?
Yeah.
I am certain that he wouldn't sign on for that job if the task wasn't to make one department of it, because he knows from his background what he used to do before he worked at Suma, that it needs to be one department, because he has done this change once, and we don't need to dig further into that. But I think an individual like Stellan would never sign up without that being part of the task. And as Stellan said, I mean, if we talk middle-sized, that a bit larger company, let's say 1 billion Swedish kronor, 100,000 euro in 100 million euro in turnover and up. There's only one owner, that's the CEO. And there's only one more person needed, that's the CFO. And then say this is one department, the reasons for doing it is this and that. This is the tempo that we're expecting, and so on. But then, like we have discussed previously, then the owner needs to decide that, because very few of the CEOs in the companies we talk about own the company.
Yeah.
So who do you think are the gatekeepers in the transition to align marketing and sales? Could you generalize, say that the marketing wants it and sales are not, or is it completely?
I very seldom hear the discussion.
Yeah.
Even on a philosophical level, I hear that companies talk, it's a prerequisite now that there needs to be a handshake, a mutual agreement between this and that. And at that point, we always try to say, oh, hold on. Where's the aftermarket part? Where's the customer support part? Will you only talk about prospects and becoming a customer? So I very seldom, I would say, Stellan, hear the discussion at all.
Yeah, no, I was kind of saying, it's a good question, but I don't think you can identify one. I think people are very busy doing what they're tasked to do.
Yeah.
Most organizations are sort of very lean in that sense, at least in large corporations. So there are too few people that are thinking like business development in that sense, and thinking, hey, we might change this and do this in a different way, and hence gain something 18 months from now.
Yeah.
Because it's always about here and now.
I sit and think about a listed B2B and B2C company in US. I wonder what would happen if they started organizing their companies in pre-sales, sales, and after sales. What would happen with that company? When the strength today with that company is that they have one contact card where they know everything about me, whether it's in B2B and B2C, doesn't matter. They know everything about me. They ask me to start a business account. Yeah, of course I can start a business account. I have more addresses, and I know we talk a lot about this company, but what would happen with that company and their revenue if they started dividing in pre-sales, sales, and after sales? Most likely they would not be one of the largest and most profitable companies in the world anymore.
They would at least lose their core edge, so they would be like everybody else. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, we need to round up, but thank you both for participating. Very interesting to hear your thoughts on this topic.
Thank you, Alexander.